What is power manifesting and what's the difference between that and manifesting?
Is there something you want to achieve and somewhere where you feel stuck? Place your hands out like this, close your eyes. Get in touch with the part of you that wants to succeed and achieve.
There are a lot of people right now who have tried manifesting and it hasn't worked for them. What's been your biggest blocker when power manifesting?
Everything you achieve comes back to your neurolinguistic programming, the way you speak to yourself, the pictures that you make, and also your physiology. We create our reality.
Almost every single person, the root of why they're not doing something is they don't feel good enough.
Here's a process that works real quick, getting you over that state of lack of self-worth. So if you close your eyes for a moment, right? You look different right now to how you did a few moments ago. Sure, yeah. You've got like, it's brighter.
I feel like I've just been hypnotized this whole podcast.
We can do another technique if you want.
What if I told you that there's a method, a real science-backed method that can help you get what you want in life? And no, this is not just about wishful thinking or writing things down on a vision board. Today's guest is Paul McKenna, one of the world's leading experts on the mind, behaviour and success psychology. He's helped world-class athletes, CEOs, and even royalty achieve their goals. And his new book, Power Manifesting, claims that anyone, yes, anyone, can do the same. But here's the real question. Does it work? Is it really possible to manifest your dream life? And if it is, why aren't more people wildly successful and living out their dreams? So in this episode, I'm going to ask the tough questions to Paul, but I'm also going to make sure that you leave with an actionable step-by-step guide and techniques that you can start using today. Because even if there's just a 1% chance that this works, isn't it worth finding out? Paul actually hypnotizes me several times in this episode, and he does lots of exercises, which I think you will all find very helpful and useful to do at home. But before we get started, I have one tiny little favor to ask all of you, and that's to press the like, follow, and subscribe button wherever you're listening to this episode, because you have no idea how much it helps me get amazing guests like Paul and some of the other incredible guests that we've had on this podcast so that we can all learn from their incredible minds. Thank you so much for always supporting me. Let's get into this episode. Paul, hello.
Shivani, hello to you.
Welcome to Millennial Mind.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here.
I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I've watched many of your talks, listened to so many of your podcasts, and I'm really looking forward to deep diving into your book, Power Manifesting. Mm-hmm. But if someone's just tuned into this podcast, why should they listen until the end?
Well, because you're going to discover some ways to get more of what you want. And in fact, some people, it'll be like a really mind-blowing transformation. They'll be like, wow, they'll have a breakthrough. Other people, it'll be more, yeah, I got something, yeah, and I feel optimistic about it. So I would imagine there is very little chance you will not be uplifted, motivated, more optimistic by the end of it.
I love it. That's exactly why you're here. Tell me, what is power manifesting and what's the difference between that and manifesting?
Okay, so regular manifesting is two-dimensional, and it's goal setting, vision boards. And by the way, that works. You know, the research on goal setting shows us that people who are clear about their goals, they are significantly more likely to achieve them. You know, goal setters make more money, for example. It's just a simple fact. So that's two-dimensional. Three-dimensional manifesting is when you imagine that you've achieved your goal. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Mm-hmm. Four-dimensional, which is what I do, I didn't realize I do it differently to lots of people, is when you go out into the future and you imagine you've achieved your goal, right? And you do things like you go, is there a negative consequence? So you do an ecology check. What could have stopped me on the way to doing this? You get a clear sense of what it's going to look like, sound like, feel like. And then you back engineer how you got there. And because everyone has a way of arranging time in their minds, mm-hmm. right? So, for example, for me, next week, I picture it there. Next month, the summer's further, Christmas is further like that. The past is behind me. So a lot of people have it extending out in front. Some people have the past on their left, the present here, the future that way, or in a circle, or down to up. There's no right or wrong way. But what you then do is you go into the future and you're on your timeline, you've achieved your goal, you step backwards, you back engineer what happened before. What happened before until you're all the way back to now. And then your mind suddenly has a set of steps and a direction that it can use to mobilize all your creativity, all your energy, all of your motivation to make that happen, because you've created a compelling future. So what you've done is four-dimensional, it's in time-space, right? So generally what I tend to do is say it's money, right? If you're manifesting money, you'll have a representation of how much you have, and it might be, say, here as a number or the block or whatever, and how you represent money coming in. So it might be a movement for a transaction, or it might be a flow of a color or energy. So what you're doing is you're taking something that you know is true, then you take something that you want to have happen, and you put what you want to have happen where something you know happens, and that has this massively profound effect upon, again, your brain, upon the way that your behaviors, your energy, and everything is directed, and arguably on the energy, because as Einstein said, everything is energy. And what I particularly like was he then added on, and so if you attune yourself to the frequency of what it is you want, you can then go create that. It's hard not to. So basically Einstein was a manifester as well.
I love that. So I'm so glad that you said goal setters are more successful and earn more money, because I often teach a goal setting framework. And what I want to do right now actually is for you to tell me what I'm doing wrong. So when I teach goal setting, I tell people to, number one, visualize where they want to go. Mm-hmm. Then identify what's been stopping them and what's going to stop them from getting there. Mm-hmm. Then 3 is understand how they're going to get there now, and how we're going to overcome those obstacles and those limiting beliefs that we have. And then 4th is creating a plan and a schedule that's going to align them to those goals. So what am I doing wrong?
Well, I don't think you're doing anything wrong. The way I do it is a slightly different sequence, right? But it's essentially the same recipe. I go out and imagine I've already achieved it. Get a sensory rich experience, right? Do the same sort of things you just asked, which is, what could stop me? I ask if there's a negative consequence. Am I going to burn out doing it? Am I going to upset people? That sort of thing. Yeah. But then, again, the same thing you described was you then go, well, what happened before? What happened before? What happened before? What happened before? Until you get back to now, right? At that moment, you should then have a succession of images of yourself taking step 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, I like to create a really big cinema-sized screen picture of myself healthy, happy, and successful. And then, because you've got to have a goal big enough to get you out of bed, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, if it's overwhelming, you're never going to achieve it. And this is the difference between, say, a strategic goal setting like you're talking about and New Year's resolutions, which the reason everyone fails at that is because they're wishes. And if all we had to do was wish, we'd all be living in a mansion house, in a luxury lifestyle. So wishes are lovely, but they've got no strategy to them. And also the other thing as well is, I'll throw in, is taking action, right? Because a lot of people go, I've got these goals and I know what I should do, but you've got to start taking action. Yes. And so one of the ways to gauge whether it's time to take action is Richard Branson's got this great strategy for upside downsiding things, right? So when he came up with the idea for Virgin Airlines, right? This is the 70s. He's running a record company, and he's on a plane. And back then there was one television in the whole cabin, and these awful plastic headphones like this. And somebody would walk down the aisle and throw something that looked like chicken in your lap. And so it wasn't, a luxurious experience traveling by air. And he sat there on a flight and he thought to himself, if I had an airline, what would it be like? And he went, right, I'd put a TV in every seat, nice headphones. I'd have a bar, I'd have masseuse, I'd have a lounge that people look forward to, I'd have great quality food, and flat seats, things like all this stuff, which revolutionized the airline industry, right? And what he did when he got off the flight was he called Boeing and he said, how much is a jumbo jet? And of course, he couldn't afford that. But could I lease one, right? So when he upside downsided it, he found that, and a good example of an upside downside is this, right? Say, for example, you like somebody, you want to ask them out, right? Mm-hmm. Now, they might reject you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, the downside is a 3, right? But they might say yes, and you might have a fantastic relationship, maybe get married. It could be wonderful, right? Life changer, right? So the upside's a 10. Now, when you have a low downside and a high upside, take massive action, right? That's what I say. So, you can see examples of this. If you've ever had an idea for a product or a service and you're looking online, you see someone else has done the same thing. And the difference between you and them was they took action. So that this sort of the thing that people miss out sometimes in goals is it's great to have them, great to have a succession of steps, but you've got to do something, even if it's a small thing, each day, because that overcomes the inertia. And then the flow and the energy and the vibrancy goes into achieving it.
100%. And confidence equals competence.
Yeah.
And competence equals confidence. And it's just a loop. And really interestingly, actually, yesterday I got my plaque from YouTube, 100,000 subscribers.
Right.
And the first person I took to see was my grandma. But my grandma's in a rehab centre at the moment because she's hurt her leg. And there was a nurse there. And my grandma was like, this is my granddaughter. She's got this award. And the nurse said, I want to start a YouTube channel. And she said, but, I just never did it because I didn't think, anyone was ever going to watch.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I thought the exact same. And I'm standing with this plaque in my hand. I didn't get it in a week. I didn't get it in a year. It took me 4 years to get it, right? And I said, there is literally no difference between how you feel right now and how I felt 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And how I often feel doing this podcast. I think people think that people who have hit these milestones, then never feel that emotion again.
Yeah.
And it's not true. And I said to her, you've just got to start small. I said, take 1 minute videos, take 2 minute videos, then build them up to 8 to 10. Because so often we look at someone and we think, oh, well, they got there because they had this fancy studio or this fancy camera. But our iPhones are great.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most crippling process of this all is we have social media now, which shows us this final end result. And we think people are there on day one.
Yeah.
And they're on day thousands.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't see.
Roger Moore once said to me, in that lovely rich voice of his, he said, Paul, most overnight successes take about 10 years.
Yeah.
And I thought, what a great way to look at. I think Steve Jobs said a similar sort of thing. And so it's so easy to look, as you say, at somebody on Instagram with loads of followers on YouTube, whatever, and look at that and go, oh my God, it seems too daunting. Yeah. But they started off with nothing, as you say. I mean, if you think about it, if you look around us right now, you, me, and this studio once started as an idea in somebody's mind, right? And the saying is thoughts create the world.
Yes.
Which is, again, brings us back to manifesting, because in a sense, manifesting is thinking about something, imagining it and bringing it into reality. That's what it is. Now, obviously there are a few steps on the way,
absolutely.
Figuring those things out and taking action. But that's the gist of it. And so in a sense, everybody is a manifester. So when you think about what am I going to have for breakfast, you think about it in your mind, you imagine it, you go cook it. That's manifesting. But then bigger projects like starting an airline, or a business, or building an audience online, for your podcast. Yeah. That's and again another project slightly bigger than making breakfast. Yeah. But nevertheless, it's manifesting.
But what is the difference between manifesting and then just going after something you want? So you've just given a really great example. If I wake up and I think I really want to have some pancakes, and then I make the pancakes, I haven't manifested them. I saw something, I wanted something, I then got the ingredients, and then I made it. What confuses me now is manifesting is used for almost everything. People will say, oh, I manifested going to this event. Yeah. No, you didn't. You bought a ticket. Yeah. What's the difference between just taking action and manifesting it? Okay, you're absolutely right that manifesting has become this umbrella word for any sort of act of creativity. Yes. And, when I first started as a hypnotist about 40 years ago, it was voodoo, right? And manifesting was kind of this new agey sort of, sandal-wearing, tree-hugging, crystal-loving sort of, sort of thing, right? And now, of course, it's not. It's, young people use it particularly, I found, as a word for acts of creativity. Right. And some people say to me, well, I'm not really a creative person. No, everyone is creative, right? You don't have to work in an ad agency and wear a bow tie to be a creative person. If you drive a car, you're creating a journey. Right now, we're creating a conversation, So you cannot not be creative. And so what kind of happened with the word manifesting is it became fabulously popular last year. It was the Cambridge Dictionary's Word of the Year. And, the number of searches and, hashtags now is in the billions on the internet. And so the way I see it is, because people go, what, you mean like you magic something? I go, not really. The very first time that somebody told me they were manifesting, this is back in the 80s. I was driving with a friend of mine. We were in central London and we couldn't find a parking space. And he said, I'm going to manifest one. I'm going to pray to the parking fairies or something. And I was looking at him like, you well out there, aren't you?
And anyway, suddenly I see a parking space. He said, see? I went, all right, it was coincidence, right?
Yeah,
so anyway, the next day I'm driving round, right, and I'm trying to look for a parking space. I'm going to manifest it. I'm thinking of a parking space, and I spotted one, right? Now, what I now know from a scientific point of view is there's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system, which is really, its job is basically to sort for what it is you want.
Right.
So when I, back in the 80s, when I started to do well and I thought, I know, I'm going to buy a BMW. I suddenly see BMWs everywhere because I've fed it into the reticular activating system. So in a sense, manifesting is, it's scientific. When I decided I was going to write this book, well, actually, before that, a friend of mine, he's a great life coach. He's been one of my dearest friends. He's coached me in the past, a guy called Michael Neal. And he said to me, he goes, I notice you get a lot of what you want, Paul. I said, well, actually, I've never stopped thinking about it. Yes, I do. Mostly, if I set out to do something, I achieve it. And he said, and you manifest, right? I said, yeah, but I don't tell anyone that because it sounds woo-woo.
Right.
And he said, and his words were, come out of the closet. Admit you're a manifestor. So I said, do you think? He goes, come on, what have you got to lose? I went, yeah, you're absolutely right. I said, but when I looked at a lot of the other books on manifesting, which, by the way, there's some really great books on it, I saw that they were taking a very spiritual sort of New Age approach. And I thought, well, there's so much science to back this up. I mean, if you just look at, you can explain manifesting through quantum physics. I mean, it's, basically everything here is made of atoms and molecules vibrating at a density and frequency, including us, right? So we're at a different density and frequency than the chair, which is why this is a chair and, we're people. And so, in a sense, everything, as Einstein said, everything is energy. What's interesting in terms of, say, law of attraction to me, here's a scientific explanation of it. When you put two pianos in the same room, there's something called the law of sympathetic resonance. You hit a C chord on one piano, the C chord on the other piano will vibrate in resonance as well, right? So if you take that principle, if you're, basically when you're in positive emotional states like love and happiness and optimism, you're more likely to be attracted to people in those emotional states. In the same way, how is it all the sort of rich, lucky people find each other?
Right.
And misery loves company. Miserable people will find each other as well, right? And I would say that's down to attraction, because, when you're in a positive emotional state, you're vibrating, you're oscillating on a different frequency than if you're in, say, hate and anger and stuff like that, And then, of course, what people then say to me is, well, hang on, wait a minute. Bad things happen to nice people. I say, oh, of course, right? Because the way I look at karma, right, is differently to where I hear a lot of people talk about it. They'll say, well, you do good things happen to you. Now, there's absolute truth in that. And the sort of, if you look at a Buddhist or Hindu description of karma, it will say it's the sum total of your deeds and actions, et cetera, et cetera. But when you think, if I do nice things will happen to me, absolutely, there's a greater likelihood of that. But how come nice people get cancer and villains have their own super yacht, right? It's because the way I look at karma is you pull to you the lessons you need to learn. So if I think back on some of the rather awful things that have happened to me over the years, as well as all the nice things, but if I think about the awful things, at the time I wouldn't have signed up for them. Right. But there was a learning. There was something within that was of benefit, even if I couldn't see it at the time. So I see karma as essentially a journey where you're pulling to you things that you need to learn. And if you think about it, the Buddha, he wasn't a god. He was a man who perfected himself. So that's sort of, in a nutshell, my philosophy on this.
I love that. And I really want to talk about everything as energy.
Yeah.
I strongly believe that every person has a very distinct energy around them, which is why when I walk into a room, I automatically know who has a good energy with me. And that's not to say that that person has a bad energy overall, but our energies don't align.
Yeah.
And so often I think we ignore that inner feeling, that intuition of knowing who we attract energy with in the way that we want to feel energetic. Does that make sense?
100%.
What gives you energy might not give me energy. And that's why everyone is so individual. But how do we know if someone has good energy or bad energy, or it's our anxiety that's ruling there?
Well, I would use this simple principle. Who takes my energy up and who takes it down? Now, I really like the 80-20 principle.
Right.
So Wilfred Pareto, a 19th century economist, discovers that 80% of the peas come from 20% of the pods in his garden. And being an economist, he wonders if this principle holds true in other areas. And it does. So 20% of your carpet's walked on 80% of the time. 80% of the cost of crime is down to 20% of the criminals. 80% of things a computer does is carried out by 20% of the software. 80% of the money you make will come from 20% of your efforts.
Yes.
And sometimes it's 70, 30, 90, 10. But I would say 80% of the fun you have and the good feelings come from 20% of the people you know, and vice versa. If you think about 80% of the grief, angst, etc., will again come from 20% of the people you know.
Yes.
And so what you need to do is a simple stock take. You go through your phone and go, who takes my energy up? Who takes it down? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. If somebody's upset and you have to help them, and that's a bit draining, that's in a slightly different category than somebody that regularly leaves you feeling drained and down, or just lose a loss of optimism, that sort of thing. It's fine to cheer people up, but not if it continually brings you down. So that's really the shift I would say around energy. That's the distinction I make. Because, some people have got great energy. They're dynamic and optimistic, but they're just, as you rightly say, you just go, we didn't click, or we did click. Sometimes, if I look at some of the people I'm friends with, I think, on paper, I don't know why we're friends, but I just love their company.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the number one and hardest lesson that I had to learn was until I let go of those people who are draining me.
Yeah.
Until I actually stop giving my energy to the wrong people in my life, I will never break through to the next level.
Yeah.
And that comes from my relationships, that comes from my work, that comes from my confidence, that comes from my mindset. Because if I allow those same people to drain me, I will not excel in those areas.
Yeah.
And once I did that, everything changed.
Well, I think what you just described there, I can certainly relate to that.
Right.
I think a lot of people can. We get to a point sometimes in our lives where we go, hang on a minute, and we stop, and you suddenly realise this. I mean, I think back about 10 years ago, I had people around me who were they weren't good people. They were, but, and it's funny because at the time, I said to somebody later, I said, I had a couple of people working with me, and I found out they were stealing, and they were, all sorts of, they were bad people, right? And I said, but I couldn't see it. And this chap said, well, he was much older and wiser. He said, it's because they were so close to you, you couldn't. I said, it took a sort of crisis where suddenly I went, hang on, it's these two, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes you can't always see it, or you have to step back.
Yes.
Or if you've got people around you who've got great judgment, right? I mean, I've been lucky over the years in the people that have represented me, my different agents over the years, have very good judgment. My wife's got a fantastic barometer on who's good and bad, So, she's
nice
wonderful.
and naughty list.
Yeah, she's like, well, this person, Paul, just watch out for this or that, etc.
Yeah.
And so I think it's funny actually. Somebody said to me, if you look at, say, a lot of, say, rock stars, they have the wife is the gatekeeper.
Right.
She'll decide who's a good person or not, and that's their job is to do that to some extent.
True. So talk to me about the steps of how someone can power manifest today, because there are a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are feeling stuck in their mindset.
Yeah.
And I think the first step that we both agree on, which I think is vision.
Yeah.
How do I know what I want?
Great question. Right. Because there are plenty of people who don't know what they want.
Right.
And you see, even though I'm a fan of goals, I used to be all about goals.
Right.
And I got stuff done. I achieved all sorts of things, but I didn't really get to enjoy it because I was just on to the next, right? And what made a big difference for me was making my life about values, right?
Okay.
So values are those things that are most important to us. So, for example, for me personally, health. If you don't have your mental, physical health, that's a big, big issue. Then it would be things like love, So what I do is each day I go, do I feel healthy? Yeah, box ticked. Do I feel loved? Do I love my family? Yes, box ticked. Was I creative? Did I do something? Yes. Did I do something kind? Right? These are my personal values. Right? Freedom. Did I get to choose the majority of things I did today? Yes. Now, when I tick those boxes, I'm living a value-driven life, and it's much happier than just goals. Now, what to me is interesting is if you look at the happiness levels today compared with the 1940s, they're about the same. And yet, we're richer, we live longer, we're more comfortable, we've got more freedoms, etc. Right?
Wow.
So why is that? And I think it's simply because we've mistaken pleasure for happiness. Now, pleasure is a glass of champagne, a new handbag, or buying a car or something. Happiness, for me, is when you're living your values.
Right.
Like every day, can I tick the boxes? Now, it's okay to have goals then, but if you show up going, yeah, I lived my values, you've won already, right? That it's a victory, right? And so I think, if somebody wants to, I can do a process now for you and people listening or watching. That's very simple to take you into to create a compelling future. And the way I would do this is, first of all, I'm going to do it in several steps, right? Because you want to get in touch with your values. Now, sometimes I'll say to somebody, what do you want? And they'll say, I want money. And I'll say, okay, well, what will the money get you or give you? And they'll say, oh, it will give me a feeling of security. I go, okay, so the money's the goal. The value is security, right? So there's a simple thing that we can do that's super powerful. It's deceptively simple. And I would say to people listening or watching, if it's safe to do so, close your eyes. And I'd like you to go off into the future to near the end of your life, not the end, but near the end of your life, the way you're presently living it, and ask yourself, what do I wish I'd done more of? And what do I wish I'd done less of? And just get some insights. Just let your mind show you. If you live your life the way you presently are, near the end of your life, will you look back and go, oh, I wish I'd done more of this, I wish I'd done less of that. Just get a sense of that, right? Because that can be a profound insight. And then, when you have that insight, or set of insights, come all the way back to now, and we're going to go out again to near the end of your life, but with the assumption that you've had the most amazing life. It's been phenomenal. It's been the greatest life. You've had the most amazing life. What made it so amazing? Was it the people? Was it the things you did? Was it the things you didn't do? Was it the things that you were passionate about? Was it the love? Was it the freedoms? What was it that made your life so amazing? And get those insights. Again, some of them will be at the conscious level you'll be aware of. Others will be at the unconscious level. Okay, and then you come back to now, and you should have a strong sense of what's important to you, or certainly stronger than you did a few moments ago. Now, let's do some magic. I'd like you to imagine floating out a year into the future, right? And imagine you've had the best year of your life, or one of the best. It's been amazing. Now, if that's true, if you've had one of the most amazing years, what must have happened in regard to your health, both mental and physical? If you've had an amazing year, what must have happened in regard to your relationships, personal and professional? If you've had an amazing year, what must have happened in regard to your career, your finances, and your general levels of happiness? Yeah, now, live a day in this amazing future. What do you see? What do you hear? How great do you feel? Yeah, get a strong sense of that, right? And now, keep those good feelings with you, but float back from that time, a year in the future, float back 3 months. And just ask yourself, what happened 3 months before? And then get a sense of it and float back another 3 months. What happened 3 months before that? And then float back another 3 months and ask, what happened 3 months before that? And then float all the way back to now. And now, I'd like you to look at a succession of images of you, healthy, happy, and successful, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and then a huge cinema-sized screen picture of you and your life. Maybe you're there with family, friends, or there's symbols of success, and make that big and bright and bold and solid 1 year from now. So as you look at your future, you can see the direction that life's going over the next year. And hey, if you want to put images of you 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. But basically, you're saying to your unconscious mind, you're saying to the universe, I want my life to go in this direction. And when you think about it regularly, because we get more of what we focus on, you're more likely to bring it about. There's a friend of mine who says, if you just tell a lamppost your plans every day, they're more likely to happen. But when you just tried that just now.
I feel really energetic. I went into a trance. I was like, did you hypnotize me? Because I know you're...
Well, sure. I believe all communication is hypnotic. It's influencing people. So, yeah, I mean, some people, like to say, well, a deep trance is when I'm more relaxed, and a light trance is when I'm more aware. But the idea is that you stop focusing on lots of things and you focus on one thing to the exclusion of others. For me, that constitutes a trance. And so what we were doing just then was we were taking the limiters off, and we're going out into the future and we're going, wow, if it's amazing, we go through the major categories. Yes. And the reason I do this is because some people are really good at excelling in one area, right? So they're great at making money, but they have bad health or terrible relationships. So I don't consider them successful. I consider them as somebody who's excelling, right? So for me, just my definition is you've got to have, all the major categories working. Yeah. And so... so I, in a sense, I don't want to install my model of happiness in other people. I'd like, you to elicit yours. But I am actually spreading the visualization and the manifesting, if you like, by going after those major categories. Because, I've made the mistake of thinking it's all about status, money, power. Yes. And then realizing that's just never going to end. And that also doesn't make you happy. It's about pleasure. So.
Well, I actually talk about 5 areas of life when non-goal setting as well. So career, health, relationships, personal development, and hobbies. Yeah. Because I think we lose so much joy in our lives by focusing so much on the end goal. So I always include hobbies and personal development in there. Yeah. What's been your biggest blocker when power manifesting? What stopped you or stopped some of your clients from actually getting what they want? Because there are a lot of people right now who have tried manifesting and it hasn't worked for them. Yeah. Why?
Well, it can be a number of things, right? Often it's a subconscious reason. So years ago, a chap came to see me back in the 80s, and every time he started to become successful in business or any venture, basically, he'd sabotage it. He'd screw it up. And he knew he was doing it, but he couldn't stop himself. And so I wouldn't do it like this now. Right. But back in the 80s, I was an old school hypnotist. So I hypnotized him and I said, right, go to when this happened. And he went back to when he was a child, and he'd said to his mother, when I grow up, I want to be successful. Right. And she said to him, oh, son, you don't want to be successful. Those successful people, they have heart attacks. Now, she was a well-meaning, northern housewife, right? And she installed her limitation in him. So an authority figure at an impressionable age says success equals heart attack. Bam, it goes into his unconscious with the power of a hypnotic suggestion. Now, thing is, the unconscious is not logical. It's purposeful. And its number one purpose is survival. Yes. So basically, he's got a conflict going on. I want to be successful. Every time he starts to, the unconscious goes, hang on, this means heart attack. No, stop that. And sabotages it. And so, once I pulled the belief, it changed everything. And same for me, if I look back, my early dating history involved some heartbreak. And so basically a part of me wanted to fall in love, find the right person, have, romance and companionship and, and share my life. And another part was going, hang on, last time we did this love thing, we got hurt. So bam, I'm going to sabotage that, right? It was funny because a friend of mine, a coach, Steve Crabb, was saying, he's got this thing where he asks you about whether you are an owner or whether you've got a victim mindset. Right. And we were talking about being in business, and I said, I've achieved things I wanted to, but also I've been in business with people who weren't good. And, and he said, how do you feel about it? I went, well, I chose to go into business. I went in with my eyes open. Mm-hmm. And he said, relationships. I said, I just dated the same kind of woman, same kind, ends in the same way, and blah, blah, blah. And he went, so it's their fault. I went, well, he went, there's a common denominator here. I went, it's me. So I got to change on the inside, right? So really all change comes from the inside. So if people are blocked, it'll be because there's a part of them that's stopping them, right? So, and when I say part, it's not like there are two people inside the head. We go, part of me wants to go to the cinema, part of me can't be bothered. So these are ways of describing processes that go on inside us. So again, if there's we can do another technique if you want, right?
I'd love to.
Right. So is there, you don't have to tell me what it is. The other thing is all content free these days. So is there something you want to achieve and somewhere where you feel stuck, where it's not happening for you?
Yes.
Right. So now what you need to do is if you place your hands out like this with your palms facing up, and if you're listening or watching at home, if it's safe to do so, close your eyes. And what you need to do is get in touch with the part of you that wants to succeed and achieve, that wants to do this thing, and put it in one of your hands. That's it. And then show me, yeah, there you go. It's in your right hand. Okay, cool. Now, what I'd like you to do is really imagine what that is. Get a sense of that. Yeah, if I achieve that or get that. And it can be any number of different things. It could be relationships. It could be business. It could be any number of different things. Some people use this for weight loss or something like that, right? Now, you want to achieve something. You know what it is. It's in your right hand. Now, in your left hand, I'd like you to put the part of you that stops you, the part of you that holds you back or sabotages, right, or limits you. And it will have a positive intent. It's almost certainly protection. Yep. It's overprotecting you. Now, here's the magic. Bring your hands together so that one is sitting on top of the other. That's it, good. And we're going to ask your unconscious to figure out how both of these parts can work together. They can both fulfill their positive intent, right? Because one part wants to achieve this and the other part's going, oh, I don't know. And it's stopping you or holding you back or sabotaging. And they both have a positive intent. And when they work together, suddenly it's easy. Because you see, up until now, it's been like trying to drive down the road with your foot on the accelerator and slamming on the brake. Makes for a bumpy ride through life. But when you ask the two parts to work together, you can ease on the accelerator, ease off the accelerator, ease on the brake, ease off the brake. So you literally surf your way through life. And then when it feels like these two parts can work together, it will be like a click, or it'll be like just a feeling like it's possible. And at that moment, pull your hands towards you, right? There you go. And integrate it. Place your hands on your chest and integrate that new super part inside you. There you go. Right? So these two aspects of you are going to work at a subconscious level together. And I'd like you to see what it'll be like to achieve your goal. See it, hear it, feel it. Free of the old limitations, the old part of you that was holding you back. There you go. That's right. That's it, good. Yeah, what will you see? What will you hear? How good will you feel? And it's all more possible now because you've got alignment at the unconscious level rather than conflict. That's right. You're more aligned, you're more focused, your energy, your vision about it, everything is more possible now. And then when you're ready, open your eyes and come on back. How's it feel?
Great. I feel like these exercises are really putting me in a very, very deep state where my energy is very lifted.
Yes.
Which is very unusual. I haven't done that. I haven't had that for a long time.
Yeah, so...
Because I practice reflection a lot.
Yeah.
But there's something, I don't know, it's very different when you're doing it.
Well, I've been doing this for a long time now, so...
That's probably why.
I bet might be, yeah. But...
You're experienced.
I mean, yeah, but this technique, this is not mine. This is my dear friend, Dr. Richard Bandler. And for me, he's the smartest behavioral scientist in the world. He creates all the best psychological technology. He's the co-creator of NLP, right? Wow. Yeah, so, he's changed the world.
Talk to me about NLP, actually, because you talk about it a lot in the book.
So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Neuro meaning brain neurology. Linguistic, way of communicating. And programming, just as a computer has programs, so does a human being. We call them habits, right? About half what we do every day is a habit. We don't think, shall I brush my teeth? We just do it. Or shall I tie my shoelaces? Now, there are a lot of programs that are really positive that support us. Like when we're a kid, we learn how to shake hands or open a door, and then we assume all doors work in that way. That's a generalization, right? Because otherwise you'd have to learn how to go in and out of a room every day. So the neat thing is many of the programs support us, but sometimes we have programs that don't. For example, like smoking, overeating, insomnia, anxiety, lack of confidence or phobias, right? And so what happens is using NLP, which is, used by the vast majority of therapists in some form or other on the planet right now. They've used, most of them have got some NLP or NLP by a different name that they're using. And what we do is we use this to help somebody make a change very fast, right?
Okay.
So pre-NLP, it was ye olde therapy, where you sit down and you talk endlessly about your problems.
Right.
And, for some people, they like getting stuff off their chest. I get it. But I meet too many people who've been in therapy for like 20 years. And they can talk like a shrink and tell you all their problem. They are unexpressed rage towards my father, some sort of psychobabble, right? And it hasn't made any difference to their behavior.
Yes.
All right. So while sometimes it's nice to get things off your chest, just endlessly explaining it, going back over and over your problems again, can reinforce it. So I'm an NLP practitioner, trainer. And so what I do is I teach somebody the structure of the techniques and also the way that we create our reality, right? So for example, everything you achieve comes from boiling an egg to making $1 million comes back to your neurolinguistic programming. So for example, it will be the way you speak to yourself inside your mind, or the sounds that you hear, the pictures that you make, and also your physiology. These create our state of mind and body, which determine our behaviors. The behaviors equal the results that we get. Anything you've ever achieved is from your behaviors, and you can trace it back to your state of mind and body. And so Richard Bandler described NLP as an attitude and a curiosity behind a methodology that leaves behind it a trail of techniques. So another thing, as well as, say, therapy and communication, NLP is really good for modeling somebody who's really excellent at something, be it a salesperson, a therapist, or anything, right? And what we do is, in a fraction of the time it took them to learn it, we can codify it and create it as a series of algorithms. So it means you can learn it and become really good really quick. So you also use this, say, in therapy, where somebody comes in and I'm not interested in why, I'm interested in how. So say somebody tells me, I've got fear of public speaking.
Yes.
Now, a Yoldi therapist will go, why? Why are you frightened? Why, right? Yeah, which is kind of just points, right? You want to know how they're doing it, right? How do I, because if I sat in for you for the day as someone who's scared, how do I do it? And they go, oh, well, I imagine I'm going to walk out and then I'm going to, freeze and people are going to look at me and I'm going to be judged and I'm going to be so upset. And I go, great, so we now know how you do it, right? If I had that kind of movie going on in my head, I'd be frightened to go out and speak, right? I have a different movie. I imagine walking out and connecting with people and it's wonderful, joyful experience.
Yes.
So what we do is something like this, all right? So, for example, a phobia is usually a one trial learning. Get bitten by one dog, mistreated by one dentist, stuck in one elevator. And as I mentioned, the mind loves to generalize, right, as a learning principle. So it goes, hang on, these elevators or these dogs generate fight or flight response whenever we see anything that any stimuli that reminds us, right? For example, what I would do with somebody using NLP to overcome a public speaking phobia is you get them to think about the times in the past and step out of them, make them black and white and dull and dim, run the movie backwards. So you're recoding it in the brain. And then I go, well, where do you feel confident speaking? They go, with my friends. I don't worry about being judged. I can be authentic and natural. And you create that state strongly, and then you take that and you synthesize it into speaking to a big auditorium full of people you don't know, like you're speaking to friends. And what happens is you literally swap the negative state of fear for the positive state of authenticity and connection.
And you can do that instantly.
Yeah, you can do it. Most phobias now are cured in about 60 minutes.
Wow.
The majority, some are even quicker. I love NLP because it's not just a therapeutic model, it's about human evolution. That was really where Richard, particularly wanted to go with it. And it was created by modeling people who were excellent as therapists. Milton Erickson, widely regarded as the greatest hypnotherapist of the last century. Virginia Satir, the mother of family therapy. Fritz Perls, the Gestalt therapist. And Richard Bandler and a guy called John Grinder, they went and modeled these people, and they found out why they were getting these astounding results from their language patterns, from the techniques they used, and they then put together their creation, being neurolinguistic programming, which was used not just as by therapists, but also by any professional communicator. Tony Blair, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama are all great at NLP.
Wow.
So it's a technology, a psychological technology that's now used all around the world. It's only about 50 years old, you know, maybe a little more than that. Yeah.
So you talk a lot about that in relation to power manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see from a lot of people who come to my workshops is they say, I'm not good enough. Almost every single person, the root of why they're not doing something is they don't feel good enough. And I feel that sometimes. Can you hypnotize me, or can you use NLP to change that for me?
100%. Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's a whole, you know, I say there's a bunch of things that most people will subscribe to. Not being good enough is there. You know, and there'll be like abandonment will be another one that pops up regularly. You know, so there's a bunch of things that you find very often. Not being good enough is absolutely something that a lot of people experience. They also experience it as imposter syndrome.
Yes.
You know, which is again really common these days. That's usually because someone gets promoted, or they close a deal, or they do something. And they suddenly go, oh my God, I don't know how I did that. Because they've stepped outside the boundaries of what they thought they deserved, what they thought was possible.
Right.
And then the part of them that checks in with them and goes, well, hang on, where are we here? Goes, you're going to get found out. You know, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
And so they go, I don't feel good enough. So this is what I would suggest, right? So in a sense, imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough is a habit. Just as confidence is a habit as well, right? Now, some people, they don't feel confident, as I mentioned, speaking in public or, you know, doing a presentation or something. But you ask them, where do you feel confident? Now, it doesn't have to be, you know, saving the world or anything. It can be walking around a supermarket. You know, you don't think, oh, shall I have the cornflakes? You just go, cornflakes, you know, chicken. Or you put all the bits in and you don't think about it because you're confident, right? So here's a process that works real quick for getting you over that state of a lack of self-worth, not feeling good enough. And again, it's a visualization process. So, you know, if people listening or watching want to do this, if it's safe to do so, if you close your eyes for a moment, right? And imagine a cinema screen in front of you. And on that screen, watch a movie, best you can. Some people say, oh, I don't know if I'm good at visualizing. You don't have to be great at it. You just think of a you that's operating at your true potential or close to it. A you that's, you know, look at the expression on your face, the light behind your eyes, your posture. A you that's confident. A you that's without self-doubt, but full of self-belief. A you that's really self-assured. A you that's powerful. A you that's feeling good and exudes happiness. Look at your posture. Look at the way that you gesture and connect with other people. Hear the sound of your voice, strong and positive. And get a very strong sense of it. Keep enjoying looking at that movie of a you that's full of confidence, optimism, joy, and self-belief. And then float over and into the screen and step in to this optimized you. See through the eyes of your full potential self. That's right. How does the world look from this perspective? Hear your internal dialogue, strong and powerful, saying something positive like, all is well. I feel great. And then feel how good this feels. And notice where you feel this really good feeling, strongest of all. And give that feeling a color, any color you like, and move that color up through your neck into your head. So it's all around your head and inside your head, and then down through your shoulders, into your arms and hands and fingers. That's right. Move that color down through your chest into your legs, and then double the brightness, and double it again, until you're glowing with this feeling of confidence, optimism, joy. That's right. Self-belief. And then surrounded by this great feeling, this beautiful aura, this color of feeling successful and happy and joyous, take this with you into your home life and imagine feeling this good at home. That's right. What do you see here and how good do you feel? Take it with you into your work life. That's it. What do you see, hear, and feel when you're feeling this amazing? And then take it with you, say, into dealing with challenging situations or people that are difficult. So you're saying to the unconscious, I want to feel this good when I'm in these various environments. And the unconscious will then generalize and go, oh, I see, you want to feel more like this more of the time. Sure, I'll make it so. And when you're ready, come on back out.
Amazing.
So how are you feeling right now?
Fabulous.
Right. So when you're doing that, your aura, your energy, everything changes, right? You're suddenly like empowered. You look different right now to how you did a few moments ago. Sure. Yeah. You've got like it's brighter, right? And so if you did this every day, right? Because, you know, athletes do this. They basically do a thing called mental rehearsal.
Yes.
They imagine running the race, winning the tournament over and over again. They're literally training their mind and body for success. And so if you did this like an athlete, you did this, you took, you know, a few minutes a day, every day for a week, you're going to be so different. Everything's going to be different. Yeah, absolutely. You'll be changing everything around you, you know, in a positive way, because you'll show up in this powerful neurophysiological state that drives your behaviors. So you'll be more resilient, you know, when a challenge comes, rather than, oh my God, you'll be like, okay, how are we going to handle this? You know?
Right. You know, I was thinking about, because I just filmed a podcast on about visualization. She talks a lot about mental fitness. What is the difference between power manifesting, visualization, mental fitness, and wishful thinking?
Right. So wishful thinking is at the bottom of the list because it's got no strategy. So it has no power. All the others are in the same family. But the power manifesting, remember, is based on, it's not just imagining winning, right? That's three-dimensional. It's imagining winning and putting it in space-time. So, for example, the neurocoding, as I mentioned, for the timeline, you know, for the future for me is seeing, you know, the weeks and months stretching out this way. So what I do is I imagine a super success, say a year from now, and then I imagine the steps before it. So my mind and body has got a route to achieving it. The other places I'll imagine it is, say, for example, it's manifesting money. I'll think, you know, how much do I presently have in the bank and how do I imagine money coming in? Now, people, you know, some people have a block, some people have like a number, some people have it, you know, multiple accounts or things like this. But then I see an action like that take place. Some people see like an energy or a color or something like that. There is no right or wrong way to do this. Whatever you're doing, do more of it. Right, so just imagine more coming in and more coming in. You see the number, you know, going higher and higher. So you're taking something you know to be true, something you want to be true, and you're putting them in the same place in your brain, in your mind, so that the neurocoding says, well, that's what I want to have it. I want to have happen. You know, Elon Musk said, if you can't imagine millions in your imagination, you won't be able to see them in your bank account, right?
Right.
So you've got to be able to imagine it first. And when you imagine it in this specific way, you know, something I know is going to happen, like I know next year will be there, and I see myself successful and work out the steps backwards. That is a step up from traditional creative visualization, you know, success visualization, etc., which is all good, by the way. I'm not opposed to it.
Yes.
I've just got a slightly more fancy way of doing it, but I didn't come about it entirely by accident. You know, it took years of doing lots of NLP with people, and also working with people and finding out what works and what doesn't. And, you know, the thing is, again, coming back to a simple principle here. I mentioned earlier, you get more of what you focus on.
Yes.
So all of this sort of stuff is good, seeing what it is you want, hearing it, feeling it. Because a lot of people think about what they don't want way too much, right? They'll say to me, oh, I don't want to be overweight, I don't want to be single, I don't want to be shy. And they put all their energy into that, so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Sure, know what you don't want, so you can head away from it, but head towards what you do want.
But what if those steps overwhelm me? So let's say my goal is to manifest $1 million next year.
Right.
And as I'm thinking about it, I know where I want to go. I know how I'm going to do it. And now I'm starting to think back to the steps. So if I want to manifest $1 million by 2026, I need to start thinking about the steps in, let's say, November, October, September.
Yes. Okay.
But those steps overwhelm me.
Right.
Now I'm feeling nervous. Now I'm feeling scared.
Okay. Right. So the moment you're overwhelmed, it's too big, right? So it's all right. So what you do is you break it into smaller chunks.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, when Richard Bandler went to work with the American military to help them with their shooting, right? So they'd give people a gun and they'd say, shoot the target, and some could hit it and some couldn't. And he went, nah, stop. Bring the target real close. Shoot from there. I got the hang of it. Then move the target slightly further away. I can hit that. Further away. And, of course, eventually everyone becomes better at shooting, right?
Okay.
Now, the thing is, anything is achievable if you break it down into small enough chunks. There was a crazy Frenchman a few years ago who ate an aeroplane because he filed it down into tiny little bits and he ate a bit each day. I know it's nuts, isn't it, right? But, you know, I'm just using a metaphor to make a point, right? So what you've done is you put yourself under too much pressure. 1 million in a year, right? Now, if we just do this, right? So if you move the 1 million out to, so we're just going to play with it, move it out to 2 years.
Okay.
Right? Or even 3,
Okay.
right? Now, when you step back, say in chunks, you come back 6 months, you're 3 years in the future, you've made $1 million, right? And you come back 6 months, then you come back another 6 months, so it's 2 years in the future, then another 6 months, then another 6 months, then another 6 months, another 6 months, and you're back to now.
Yes.
Right? It's less overwhelming, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, so we stretch it out. Let's see if we can push it into 2 years. Again, it's 2 years in the future.
Yeah.
You made $1 million, come back 6 months, another 6 months, so it's a year, then 6 months, then 6 months. Does it feel more achievable?
Yes.
Yeah. So all it was, and by the way, this is not uncommon. People go, you know, this is right. I'm going to lose 50 pounds, right? And right, I'm going to join a gym, and I'm going to and literally, it's just too big a goal without the steps on the way. And you know, people expect to and they have an unrealistic expectation. I've got to lose it in 6 months, right? And which is, you know, is possible. But suddenly, if you turn it into a year, it's so one of the things I find why people fail at goals is it's a too bigger expectation in too short a time.
Yes.
But then if you give yourself more time and you break it into small steps, you know, as a friend of mine is an actor, he had to learn a 3-hour play, right? And he said to me, I don't know how I'm going to learn this. It was Beckett, right? And I said, well, you're trying to learn all 3 hours in one go. I need you to break it into each scene, like break it into, you know, 25 scenes or whatever it is, right? He went, oh, and we're just going to learn one bit at a time. And he went, yeah, but I mean, what if I can't remember the lines? I went, well, just what's the story? Oh, the king comes from a faraway land and something. I went, there you go, right.
Yeah.
So what are the words that describe? Oh, right, I can. So
Yes.
suddenly, when you break things into small enough chunks, they're much more manageable.
And do you believe that anyone can manifest money?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you know, what happened was I wrote a book. One of the best-selling self-help book of all time is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That's right. And it's a really interesting story. You know, he basically was commissioned by a guy called Andrew Carnegie, who was this amazing self-made, you know, fabulously wealthy industrialist, be a multi-billionaire by today's standards. This is about 80, 90 years ago. To go and study his rich colleagues and friends and find out what they had in common. And basically, Think and Grow Rich is a subconscious reprogramming system, right? So yeah. Now, the only thing is, what I find interesting is people who come into lots of money suddenly through inheritance or a lottery win, about 70% of them have got rid of it all within a few years, right? Because they haven't become rich on the inside.
Right.
And I remember looking at Think and Grow Rich, I thought, great book. But I said, you know, I think I might be able to write something better, more up to date. So I decided I was going to write a book on being rich. And I wanted to meet, you know, billionaires who I could model, who I could study. And it was the weirdest thing. As soon as I committed to this, like a few days later, I'm sitting at this dinner party opposite Anita Roddick, you know, the Body Shop founder, self-made billionaire. And I'd always wanted to meet her. I said, oh, Anita, you know, I'm chatting away. I said, I'm doing this thing where she went, I'll do it. I said, I haven't even told you yet. She goes, I don't know. I just got this feeling, whatever it is, fantastic. Wow. So I modeled Anita Roddick. I get a call from Richard Branson, said, I'd like you to do this event for me. I said, yeah, certainly. And he said, well, what are you going to charge me? I said, well, nothing if I can do two things, right? I want to model you. I want to ask you questions about how you come up with a business idea, how you, you know, execute, etc. We went, yeah, you can do that. I said, and look, I'm writing a book on this. Would you be prepared to write the foreword? He said, well, if I like it, I will. And he did, right?
Wow.
And then I came into, and actually one of the people I modeled was Sir David Barclay, again, a self-made billionaire. He's no longer with us. And he said to me a really interesting thing. He goes, on this journey, Paul, you're going to meet people who are wealthy, but they're not rich. I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, oh, they're constantly running from poverty, right? They never get to enjoy it. You know, it's a great saying by Bob Marley. He said, some people are so poor, all they have is money, right? So I decided I wanted really to model people that I thought were, I didn't want to create more miserable millionaires,
Yes.
but people who were truly rich, sure, wealthy, but rich in every sense. So I got all the transcripts of all the people I'd modeled. I laid them out. I was staying in a hotel in LA at the time, so I hadn't quite moved there. So the suite is covered in bits of paper. And I'm looking at it all for weeks and putting it together. And then suddenly I go, I've got the patterns. I found it, right? It's like a code. It's like, and suddenly, so I condensed the patterns down, and myself and my friend Michael Neal, we together worked on this and pulled it together and made it into a system, which is in my book, I Can Make You Rich. It's my favorite of all the books, actually. I did the system myself, and it was an extraordinary jump in what I suddenly was able to make, financially. But my life became richer in other ways. And we did it on a group of, I think it was 12 people, that's right. Now, every one of them made more money, right? But one of them went from being quite a modest earner in just over a year to being a millionaire.
Wow.
Like, so he had all these resources and assets that he didn't realize because he wasn't thinking rich. See, I don't think of poor people and rich people. I think of poor thinkers and rich thinkers, right?
Right.
Poor thinkers are, they're in lack, they're surviving, right?
Yes.
And it's not a nice place to be. Whereas rich thinkers think in terms of possibility. And, years ago, I was a poor thinker,
Yes.
and, I would, a bill would come through, how am I going to pay it? And I never thought in terms of possibility till I started reading self-help books. And, I basically had a shift in my thinking and my behavior and all sorts of stuff. And at that point, I suddenly started thinking in terms of possibility. And that's when my life changed immeasurably for the better.
How can you, in 1 minute, change a lack mindset to an abundant mindset?
So for this process, right, we're going to use a technique which is a psychosensory technique, right? And psychosensory, there's about 4 major techniques. There's one where you tap on the acupuncture points, which is great. It's called TFT. It was created by my friend, now late Roger Callahan, a brilliant psychologist and wonderful man, actually. There's another where you look up, you move your eyes back and forth to desensitize, unpleasant memories and things like that. And it works okay. I don't use that because I don't find it as powerful as the one where you touch basically touch of here, palms of your hands. When you touch here like this, you stroke the side of your arms. What happens is you create a delta wave. And we use this technique a lot in curing PTSD and trauma and stuff like that. It was created by, again, a brilliant American scientist, dear friend of mine, Dr. Ronald Rudin. He found that the touch of specific parts of the body creates a delta wave. So when you go through a trauma, 100 hertz wave travels from the thalamus and it phosphorylates what's called the AMPA receptor. So it creates a biological change in the brain. But when you recall the memory and you stroke the side of your arms like this, like that, you go from, that's it, you stroke the side of them. It feels comforting because when you were a child, your mother held you in her arms and she rocks you. So you're hardwired to create this delta. And what it does is it dephosphorylates the AMPA receptors, creates a biological change in the brain. It's deceptively simple. So let me do a technique with you now.
Yes, let's do it.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, first of all, we're going to go and locate like the fear of losing it all, right? Which is a lot of people have this, right? And we're going to haven it, as in a safe haven. And we're going to do this until it's gone, right? And you just go, I'm not frightened anymore. Then we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum to avarice, right? And, one of the things that people say to me, they go, doesn't it say in the Bible that money is the root of all evil? I said, no, it doesn't. It says the love of money. So treating money like a commodity. Oh, I've got to have some. Avarice, greed, all that sort of stuff. Again, a lot of people have. We're going to try and get feelings like that, and we're going to knock those flat. So you will then sit in what I call the money zone, right? So you won't be frightened of losing it all, but at the same time, you won't have this, got to have either. So you'll just be in this sort of, you'll have the freedom of indifference about it, right? So if you close your eyes and you put your left hand on your right shoulder, your right hand on your left shoulder, just stroke the side of your arms. And I'd like you to imagine, first of all, it's going to be a little uncomfortable, this first one. Imagine you've lost it all. Imagine, that's it. You've lost it all, everything, all of it. Maybe you're on the street, make it as scary as you possibly can, right? Ooh, that's it. Collect up all that feeling of oh, my God, of poverty, of loss. Yeah, that's it. Collect it all up as you're stroking the side of your arms and then clear your mind. Clear your mind. And as you're stroking the side of your arms, Imagine that we're walking on a beach. And with me, count out loud with each footstep you take in the sand from 1 to 20, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Keep stroking the side of your arms. And I'd like you to remember any happy time, like you're back there again now. Return to it again and see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel how good you felt. Make the colors rich and bright and bold, the sounds loud and the feelings strong. And once again, when you get a good feeling, give it that color, move that color up to the top of your head, down through your shoulders into your arms, hands and fingers, down to your legs, and double the brightness and double it again. That's right. That's it, good. That's it, there you go. And then notice when you think about losing it all, what's the difference? It's not scary. No, it's right. Now, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Imagine you've got all the money in the world. That's right. And you love it all, coming in, all this money. And, you've got a leaf blower to blow 50-pound notes down the corridor of your house. That's right. You've got money. You've got a bar full of money, money on the wall, wallpapered money. Right. Try and get as much kind of lust for money going as you can. And then clear your mind. Clear your mind. And once again, we're walking on a beach. With each footstep that you take in the sand, let's count out loud from 1 to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And then go back to that happy time. Return to it, see what you saw, hear what you heard, feel the good feelings, be surrounded by the happy color. Ooh, that's nice. Then when you're ready, stop and open your eyes and come on back out. Now, when you think about losing it all, where's the fear? Not really there, right? And you think about acquiring loads of money. Yeah, it's a nice idea, but you're not. Yeah. So basically, we've moved away from any desperation, any kind of, overwhelming fear and any, sort of desperate lust. And so you sit emotionally in a better place. I would argue that you're, if you like, oscillating on a different frequency now in relation to money, right?
How can we change our frequency? So everything is energy and we are all running on a different frequency. But if we're constantly surrounded by negative people, how do I change my own frequency?
The technique we did earlier.
Yes.
Imagine that you.
Yes.
That's a big frequency changer. There's another technique I've got that again, I think you might enjoy this. There's 2 university professors who I know who've researched luck. A guy called Richard Wiseman, he's a British scientist, he's brilliant. And he basically did all these experiments, right? Where one of them I think is particularly fascinating, where he gets the people who think they're lucky and the people who think they're unlucky. And by the way, if you think you're lucky, you are statistically way more lucky, right?
100%.
Right? Than if you believe you're unlucky. And so he gets them into 2 groups and he gives them a newspaper. He says, count the number of pictures that are in the newspaper. So all the lucky people see a big ad on page 3 that says, there are 42 pictures in this newspaper, claim your £100, right? The unlucky people all miss that, right? So when you're in a lucky place, your perceptual filters, right, what you sought for will be different than if you're unlucky, if you think you're unlucky. Dean Radin is the other professor who he actually researched luck when he was at Nevada University because casinos couldn't understand why some people are luckier and unluckier than others. And again, a lot of it comes down to what you believe.
Okay.
And again, some of that is formed in those early years of your life, either because you go through some adversity and you get through it and you go, God, I'm so lucky. Or you're just constantly told you're really lucky, so it goes into the subconscious. I got this technique I was watching years ago. It was an interview with Keith Richard. And he was being interviewed, it's like back in the 60s or 70s. And he's sitting there, like Keith Richard's word, he's got cool, he's got a cigarette going on. And they said, the interviewer said, there's a list of people in rock and roll who are most likely to die. And he goes, oh yeah, he goes, am I on it? They went, actually, you're top of it. And he goes, well, I'll let you know how I get on. He goes, my luck hasn't run out yet. And I thought, luck? like it's an energy, like it's a
Right.
state, right? So again, this is a technique we can do. And if you practice this every day, your luck will increase, right?
Okay.
It cannot not, right? And when I did this with myself and when I developed this years ago, with a group of people, now everybody's luck changed. Some people went through some uncomfortable changes because, like for me, as I mentioned, there were people around me and I suddenly went, oh my God, this is bad. But I look back, it was a lucky change for me because I got rid of them and, had better people around me. So when I say luck changes, it doesn't mean you suddenly go out and win the lottery, right?
Okay.
But things get better. So once again, if it's safe to do so, if you're listening or watching, close your eyes. And I need you to remember a time where you either felt lucky or you felt like everything was going your way. It was just one of those times where it was all just going your way and it felt good, right? And return to it like you're back there again now. See what you saw, hear what you heard, and just feel how good that lucky feeling is. And notice where it's strongest in your body. Like some people get it like a tingle, or, they just got, this excitement inside their mind. Keep going through the memory, put it on a loop. Seeing what you saw, hearing what you heard, and feeling how good you felt. Like the colors rich and bright and bold, and the sounds, the feelings. Yeah, that's really great. Give those feelings a color. The lucky feelings, give them a color, and move that color all the way up through the top of your head. That's it. Down through your shoulders, into your arms and hands and fingers once again, down through your chest, into your stomach and legs, all the way to the tips of your toes, and double the brightness. So if your luck was, say, at like 20, 30%, take it up to 40%. Keep going through that memory. That's right. Make that glow even bigger. Take it to 50%. That's right. Take it to 60%. Actually, increase the glow of this lucky feeling. That's right. Keep going through that memory. Take it to 60, 70, 80%. That's right. Take it right up. Take it to 90%. Take it to 100%. Keep that glow going. That's right. Keep that amazing feeling, that amazing memory going. That's right. Take it to 110%, 120%, 130%, and then 1,000,000,000, billion, trillion %. Woo! And then, when you're ready, come on out.
I feel like I've just been hypnotised this whole podcast, which is wonderful.
Yes.
I'm going to walk out making so much money, so lucky. Amazing.
How do you feel right now?
I feel really energetic.
Yeah.
I feel very high.
Yeah, so
You definitely have
right
hypnotised
now, if you did that every day, your luck would, I'm sure you're already a lucky person. You strike me
I
as that.
100% think I'm the luckiest person ever.
Yeah. So again, this just enhances it.
Right.
I remember a few years ago, I was standing in the immigration line at LAX airport, and having just landed, and I turn like this, and this guy behind me goes, "It's you." What do you kind of say to that? I went, "Yeah, it's me." And he went, No, you don't understand. He said, "I'm a poker player, right?" And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "And I've sort of lost my luck." And I thought, if I just got to meet you, and I thought you could help me. I went, I'm looking at the line, I think, probably 10, 15 minutes to go. I went, so I said, "Were you lucky in the past?" He went, "Yeah." So I did the process, return to it now, Anyway.
Did this in the line at LAX?
I was standing there, and he was going, yeah. And then I went, and I created what we call an NLP, an anchor. I said, yeah. And I went, of all the billions of people on this planet, you must be lucky because you found me. Bam! And anchored it. And he went, my God, I feel completely different, right? And so, a friend of mine, Dr. Stephen Simpson, he works with poker players and golfers, and he's a therapist, but he works with the two highest earning online poker players in the world. One's a man, one's a woman, and they have 10x'd their winnings by using his techniques. And, part of it is with poker, it's a mindset, as much as anything. But again,
isn't that just a bit crazy to be like, I've just given it to you? There's going to be a lot of skeptics watching this.
Well, it isn't just given. You have to, he worked with them over a period of time.
Right, okay.
Yeah, to get them into a, because again, I'm not an expert in poker, but, people chase their losses. They do all these sort of stuff. And a lot of it comes down to controlling your state of mind and body. When you're in this state, you just make smarter decisions and a whole load of different things. But Stephen, he's a medical doctor. He comes from a conventional scientific world. He got interested in hypnotherapy and NLP and and Havening, and
Wow.
and he's written a lot about this sort of stuff.
Well,
So what the point I'm trying to make is
yes.
that basically, I would understand people being skeptical. I'm a skeptical person. I just want to blindly believe anything.
Yeah.
But I always say, try it out, see what the results are.
Okay. If you want to be lucky, there's one affirmation that I say every day that has totally changed my luck. And it's, I am so lucky and good things always happen to me.
Yes.
So show me how I'm lucky today.
Oh, wow.
And it is phenomenal. Every single day, I will notice something that when someone says to me, oh, you're a lucky person, I say, I'm a very lucky person.
Yeah.
Because I believe that I am.
Yeah.
Because I rewired my brain to believe that I am lucky with that affirmation.
I love what you do in the end of that. Is you go, show me,
Yes.
right? So basically, you're asking the reticular activating system to sort for it.
Exactly.
And there's a friend of mine, again, he's a very lucky guy, and he does a similar sort of affirmation. I'm so lucky, life does great things for me, and it's along those lines. I can't remember the exact words. And he shared this with me recently. So we were talking about, we were both saying we feel really blessed, and he goes, he said, I do this every day. I said, really? I didn't think you were into that sort of thing. He goes, big time. The other thing as well that I find really helps is a gratitude list. And so if I go walk in nature, right, in the park or something, so you've got all that beautiful positive overwhelm. And then I just think about the things that I feel most grateful for. Like, first of all, my health, my family, friends, where I live in the world, the job I get to do, big things like that, small things like that first cup of tea in the morning, whatever. And the neat thing is when you, in the same way that you're doing with this luck affirmation, you're basically affirming abundance, right?
You are.
Yeah. So when you do that, because you get more what you focus on, you're saying to the unconscious mind, look how much I have. I'm so grateful for it. And then it gets you more of that, right? So I think it's a terrific affirmation to be doing.
Thank you. Well, I always tell people, try that one affirmation, your life will change.
Yes.
And then let me know. With all the clients that you've coached and helped, what's the craziest thing that someone's manifested?
Do you know, I think the chap that went from being humble to a millionaire just over a year was pretty much out there. I mean, he just suddenly realized he had this resource or set of resources, and he started charging way more and way more and more. But then, see, when I think about people that I've helped, the probably the most astounding case for me is a guy called Ray Mash, right? He worked on a construction site, and he had an accident where he got hit on the head, and he suddenly couldn't see. Now, at the time, when they looked at him, there was no neurological damage, but he'd been through a trauma. And there is this incredibly rare, this disorder. It's called hysterical blindness. So the person is genuinely blind, they can't see anything, but there's no neurological reason for it. It's really, really rare. He wrote to me, and I thought, oh my God, I mean, as a therapist, this is an incredibly rare opportunity to treat something that is so unusual. And I had no idea if I could, what I could do, but I'm, sleeves up, prepared to get stuck in, right? Anyway, he has, dark glasses and a walking stick because he's had to adjust his light sensitivity and also has the identity of a blind person, right?
Right.
So, and this took months. I mean, like nearly a year, I think it was. And we had to start in a darkened room, and the room got lighter and lighter. And, I'm trying to get over the trauma, but to rebuild the ability to see. And one day, in this darkened room, his wife is there. We shine a torch on his wife's face. And for the first time in 8 years, he can see his wife's face, right? I mean, it was like goosebumps. Wow, His sight began to come back a bit more and more. He didn't get it fully back, but he could see his wife's face, his grandchildren's face. I spoke to him a while ago, and he'd driven a car, not on the road, but, this is in the category of incurable, right? So for me, that's kind of, if I had to choose one sort of mind-blowing case, because everybody else had done what they could, but they couldn't treat him successfully.
Amazing.
And that for me was, that will always remain as the one where, even, okay.
You're like, how did I do that?
How did I do it?
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite quote that you live by?
I love "Be the change you want to see in the world" from Gandhi. The Dalai Lama, kindness is my religion.
Yeah.
I live by that too. When people ask me, have you got one piece of advice to give people? I say, you get more of what you focus on, right? So, you can look at your life where it is right now, and if there's something you don't like, you're putting energy into that. Sure, you need to know what you don't want, but you've got to put energy and thinking and time into what you do want. So that, for me, is the smallest thing that makes the biggest difference.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for hypnotizing me multiple times. Thank you for all these exercises. I'm going to clip those and listen to it every day, and then I'll message you in a year's time.
Please do.
And we'll see where I am.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's lovely to meet you. Lovely to be on this podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.